And welcome back to Hour 2 of X Squared Radio. Just before we get started, I want to interject just a little bit of Rumi here. A story: a mouse caught hold of a camel's lead rope in his two forelegs and walked off with it, imitating the camel's drivers. The camel went along, letting the mouse feel heroic. "Enjoy yourself," he thought. "I have something to teach you presently." They came to the edge of a great river. The mouse was dumbfounded. "Step forward into the river. You are my leader. Don't stop here." "I'm afraid of being drowned," said the mouse. The camel walked into the water. "It's only just above the knee." Your knee? Your knee is 100 times over my head." "Well, maybe you shouldn't be leading a camel." So as I interject that story, I just want to send President Obama a message. Maybe you're in a little over your head, Mr. President. Why don't you let those that know what they're doing lead from here? I want to let you know my new book, Remembering the Future, went to press today. So hopefully in about less than 4 weeks, you're going to be able to have this in your hands. Remembering the Future, the Physics of the Soul and Time Travel. If you bought the ebook, you will be sent an email with a coupon code for 25% off the printed version. I think you're going to enjoy it. It just came through editing, and it's a very, very good book. RememberingTheFuturebook.com if you want to pick up the ebook now. Also, remember, Twitter is alive and well on X Squared Radio, and I add stuff all day as we approach the announcement of the Inner Earth expedition and other things like the nation's first affordable electric vehicles. So keep track of me on Twitter by searching for Brooks Agnew. And don't forget to click on the Web Talk Radio link at X Squared Radio. It's a short 30-minute version of the program, free for everyone to listen to. The more you click and the more friends you send there, the better our chances for syndication. That means we get to play on the airwaves. So let's spread the word, because we need to get something positive going out there. We'll be back in 40 seconds with our next guest. We'll talk about the Disclosure Project on X Squared Radio.
The spice extends life. The spice expands consciousness. The spice is vital to space travel.
For more than 60 years, Americans have been petitioning the United States government to release what it knows about UFOs. In recent years, Canada, France, and other nations have come forth declassifying their documents and releasing a plethora of facts and figures and evidence and video and pictures to the public. It's about time the U.S. government did so, and leading the effort to do this is my friend Stephen Bassett. Welcome to the program, Stephen.
Great to be with you, Brooks, as always.
I have heard a lot going on in the news, Stephen, and we've been watching the Disclosure Project very closely for a number of years, and this is a work of passion. It is definitely not a work of great revenue, and you're certainly not making any money at it, but it is a passion of faith and dedication to the revelation of truth to the American people. So tell us what's happened in the last 12 months or so.
Well, first, let me, and this happens all the time, so don't think anything about it, but I'm a extra-political activist, and I'm involved in the disclosure movement. The Disclosure Project is, in fact, a formal organization by Stephen Greer. And I'm often confused. He and I often get confused, no big deal, happens all the time, but I always clarify it because otherwise it can snowball. The disclosure process, of course, continues, and it has only one outcome, and that is the governments of the world will acknowledge the ET presence. They haven't got any choice, really. And the activism itself is important, and you're right. You simply cannot pursue this kind of thing as a business. You can't pursue it as a lifestyle. You are and this is true of all activist movements that I've studied, almost no exceptions. I think that there are certain kinds of causes that are pursued by movie stars and rock stars, and they're able to do some good, and they also live very well. But this is generally not common. Activist movements, particularly the great social movements of our times, require a certain approach that you simply buy into, and you can't have it both ways. I happen to think that the disclosure movement is the most important activist movement in history, more important than the civil rights movement, women's rights movement, suffrage, colonial independence from colonialism. Pick it. And I make that statement, Brooks, based upon the scope of the issue, the implications of the issue, how many people are going to be affected by its resolution. Virtually everyone globally. No movement really in any issue has ever had this depth and breadth. Though ironically, because of the truth embargo that's been in place, that is not the perception amongst the general public rather. And that sort of creates an interesting cognitive dissonance.
Well, let's cover a couple of those aspects. And what was it, 10, 15 years ago, the Brookings institution came out and made a statement, or at least released a study, that said if global first contact were to occur, or if the United States were to release everything that it knew about UFOs, that there would be a socio-religious collapse of our society. Do you think that's still true today, that would happen?
Actually, I don't think it was true then. Everything that's happened since 1947 has been part of an orchestrated government policy, which I have come to call the truth embargo, replacing what it generally been the term had been the UFO cover-up. But that term did not properly describe it, and so the policy of truth embargo has been around for 60 years, and everything that's happened, been done, been said, is all within the context of that truth embargo. And in general, the rule is nothing is what it seems. It's like Alice in Wonderland. Nothing is what it seems, which makes for a rather interesting history and a very confusing, reality, which is not helpful because reality is already pretty confusing.
Well, sure. I mean, now coming into the mainstream, we're not talking about fringe stuff anymore. I mean, just recently you were on Fox News with Shepard Smith, and you went over the military footage where ships of light were actually caught on film by military jets, and that was released to the news. So we're not talking about fringe anymore. We're talking about mainstream withholding of evidence from the American people that we are not alone.
Well, this is the historical dynamic. You see, in 1960, when the Brookings report was issued, it was commissioned by the Navy. It was primarily a propaganda maneuver. What they were trying to do there was to come up with a sort of cover story for dealing with all of the people inside government, military agencies, intelligence agencies, and others, who, one way or another, were going to figure out the ET issue was real. And they needed to keep them in line. They obviously had non-disclosure agreements, and they were under classification regimens and all of that. But still, that doesn't mean they couldn't just decide to go run down to the New York Times like Daniel Ellsberg with a whole bunch of files on any given day. And so in order to help them do that, they come up with this idea of, well, look, if and let it kind of get out there. And also in the public's mind, too, is kind of a dampener that, if this becomes true, and by 1960, plenty of people knew it was true. I mean, the sightings have been all over the place, and a lot had already happened. But if this becomes true, it'll be the end of civilization, the end of religion, the end of finance, and blah, 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 blah. In other words, don't run down to the New York Times like Daniel Ellsberg. You'll end civilization, which is fairly, strong medicine. Okay, well and good. Now, in 1952, 8 years earlier, in late 52, the Robertson panel was commissioned. And in that panel, what they did was outline a policy that basically said, look, the ET issue isn't that much of a problem. It is the presence of them is not that much of a problem yet, but the public's awareness of it is the problem, and so we have got to manage the public's awareness. And so this, what would happen to society if the truth were revealed? No one has ever